Welcome back. Hockey started about a week ago, but we still have one division left to preview, and honestly, it wouldn't be right to just leave it out. So here's Tradon continuing his fantastic, super informative NHL previews. Tradon, let's do that hockey.
Yeah, let's do that hockey. James, thank you. We are going to round out the divisional previews today with the Scotia NHL North Division. This consists of all 7 of the Canadian teams in the NHL. And as always, we're going to start with number 1, the Toronto Maple Leafs. In 2019, the Leafs finished the 2020 season with a 36-25-9 record, which was good for 3rd in the Atlantic and 8th in the Eastern Conference. The issues with the Leafs have been the playoffs, as they have not been able to overcome the first round of playoffs over the last 4 seasons. And they lost in Game 5 of the qualifying round against the Blue Jackets in the bubble. Offensively, this team was very good. Only the Lightning and Capitals produced a better per game offense, as the Leafs netted a 3.39 goals per game average. They also checked in with the 6th best power play with a 23.1% clip. Defensively, this team struggles. The Leafs ranked 26 with a 3.17 goals against per game, and their PK was 21st with a 77.7% clip. Goaltending wise, this team has been leaning on MVP netminder Frederik Andersen, who's pretty much kept him in contention the last few years here. He did suffer a setback last season, posting a 2.85 goals against average and a .909 save percentage, but has historically been very good, keeping his team in games most nights. The outlook for 2021, the team up front looks very all around the same, with superstar Arthur Matthews leading the charge with John Tavares, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander. Bottom 6 production is questionable, but as they are getting older and the recent additions of aging veterans may or may not be able to keep up with this, speedy offense. Defensively, the team added TJ Brody from the Calgary Flames, who is a solid hire in my opinion. Their top D-man, Jake Muzzin, every 3 of you guys know him very well, is a force, and we should see some improvement on the back end all in my opinion. Goaltending is expected to remain solid, though backup goaltending is one of the big question marks for the team, especially given this truncated season where he's going to be playing a lot more. Some additions, Jumbo Joe Thornton, Wayne Simmons, and TJ Brody. They did lose Tyson Barrie, Kasperi Kapanen, and Kyle Clifford to free agency this past year. Players to watch, Austin Matthews. This Arizona native is a force. He's 23 years old. He saw an uptick in production when he was put on the same line as William Nylander and Mitch Marner, and he's expected to lead his team in scoring yet again, and I expect him to be a front runner for the Art Ross this year. And then Frederik Andersen. We've seen Andersen carry the Leafs over the years at times, but he's entering a final year in his contract. The team will need to refrain from overworking him, which has been a problem for this team. They overwork him big time. So getting a full season of Andersen playing 100% is a scary thought for anyone in this division, the way I see it. So Alex, told you to take a look at the Maple Leafs. My question for you, the biggest problem for this team has been defense and a team committed to playing a grit, heavy hockey, heavy type of hockey. But they did add some truculence in the lineup in Wayne Simmons and Thornton. Do you think this team can actually win a round of playoffs?
Yes, I do think they can win a round of playoffs. I think it helps that they are in the All-Canada division, because whatever team they end up playing is probably not going to be as good as someone they would have played in their normal division. Joe Thornton is obviously not the player he used to be. He is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, obviously, but he's going to bring some grit. I mean, if anything, the beard hairs will fall out, and that will just make the ice gritty, as an actual texture. Wayne Simmons is the man. He will also, he already got in a fight. It's 4 games in. He already got in a fight. Those 2 guys can bring a lot of veteran, gritty leadership to this team that when John Tavares came in, I think some people maybe thought, he's kind of a veteran to lead this younger team, but John Tavares is not that kind of gritty, nose to the grind kind of player. He's more flash, scoring. But yeah, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs can definitely win a first round. I think they could come out of this division to make it into that Final Four. And I think Austin Matthews has a sort of a dark horse MVP candidate this year.
I like that. Austin Matthews is a tremendous player. This team is scary, if only because they are a high octane and fast team that can put up 5 goals against you on any given night. The back end isn't the prettiest in the league, but I think it's solid enough to keep scoring chances at bay. And if they get some extra help from Jack Campbell, the backup, you guys remember him over in LA, they will not finish lower than second in this division. And I would expect this team to actually make the semifinals. One team from Canada will, and I think that this is going to be a team, as you mentioned, they won't have to face the Boston juggernaut this season, who's pretty much had their number every single season in the past year. Moving on to number 2, I have the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs finished the season 31-31-9, good for 5th in the Atlantic and 12th in the Eastern Conference. They were the final team to make the extended playoffs, but they turned heads by eliminating the Pittsburgh Penguins in 4 games in the qualifying round. On the offensive side, the Habs ranked below average at 19th with 2.93 goals per game and 22nd on the power play with a 17.7% clip. Advanced stats do suggest that they were more impressive offensively on 5-on-5, ranking 3rd in scoring chances generated, just unable to finish their offensive workings there. Defensively, the Habs tied for 19th in goals against per game at 3.10, though they ranked 12th in scoring chances against and tied for 11th in high danger chances against. So perhaps they did deserve some better goals against stats than they ended up getting. Goaltending wise, Carey Price has held this team on his shoulders throughout his career. He's been on a bit of a decline in the last 2 of the last 3 seasons, but he did take home the Hart Trophy in 2015, turning in a 1.96 goals against average and a .933 save percentage while starting in 66 games. That is insane. And his recent play in the bubble saw him turn in a 1.78 goals against average and a .936 save percentage. He is trending tremendously right now. My outlook for 2021, this team made some solid additions, including Tyler Toffoli, a former LA King, Joel Edmondson, Josh Anderson, and Corey Perry in terms of the skating squad. They were an outstanding possession team last year, and that can only expect to remain going forward, in my view. The additions up front should definitely improve the offensive rankings this year. The improvement of goaltending from Carey Price recently and the addition of Drake Allen should also lead to an improved defensive numbers. They have a young core of players, including Nick Suzuki and Kasperi Kotkaniemi, who have made some steps in the bubble and will be looked to continue that trend. This team has speed. They have good coaching at Claude Julien and as smart GM and Marc Bergevin. I see some good stuff with this team. Some players to watch. I have Josh Anderson. Anderson was traded from the Blue Jackets, trading spots with Max Domi before quickly signing a massive, especially given the COVID era, contract for 7 years at $5.4 million a year. He has the ability to score 25 to 30 goals in a season and could bring that extra finish that team needs. This is a big gamble, but it's always fun to see how these moves kind of play out in a season. And then I have Jake Allen. The backup goalie will be watched because the Habs now have $15 million tied up in the goaltending position, most in the NHL by far. But will it be worth it? Allen does give the team a capable backup to take the net when their Hall of Fame goalie, Carey Price, is taking a breather and might be the key to unlocking a long season for this team. James, you really like this team in the bubble, and I gave you the task of checking this team out. This team stunned people in the bubble, and it seems like they are faster even so. Do you see the moves made by Bergevin paying off, and do you see this team winning a series or 2 in the playoffs this year?
I think we see it paying off right now. I mean, they've played 4 games and they've won more than they've lost. I believe. Yes. I think they're 3-1 right now because they just beat the Oilers 3-1. Josh Anderson, you mentioned him before. I think he's the best addition this team could have made right now. He's a couple years removed from having like a 50-point season, close to 50-point season. He had injury problems last year, so his numbers fluctuated. He played like a couple of games and had labral surgery. He doesn't have the same offensive numbers as Max Domi did, but what he does have is the fact that he's a good teammate. He's a hard worker. He has a go-getter attitude, and he's a leader. And that's not something you could say about Max Domi. There's always been rumors circulating about how he's a terrible person, terrible teammate, always these arguments with coaches. So I think that whole chemistry piece gets upped, and that's huge when it comes to hockey, playing in this league and all the games. And the fact that it's a COVID season, you can't really talk to people, you can't do much. It's basically you and your team, so you have to have chemistry in order to be successful. I also like Tyler Toffoli. He's done so much these last couple of games. I've watched all of them, and he's out there doing great things. He's where he's supposed to be. He's passing the puck around. He looks really, really good. And I don't know what he was like when he was with the Kings, but if he was anything like this, Kings made a mistake by letting him go.
He's solid.
You mentioned Nick Suzuki and Kakami, both youngsters, really, really, really good. So addition-wise, they did well. But I think the variable or the part that makes Canadians this much better is the fact that they did well in the bubble last season.
Mm-hmm.
That confidence, they have the same core group of players, and they're all seeing that if they work together, they work hard, they can go places and they can do big things and upset big teams and play at a very, very high level. And that is carrying over to this season. You see it. Carey Price had a pretty tough couple seasons before this last season, and all of a sudden he's back to he could win a Vezina. He could win one of those this year. He's playing at a really high level.
Yeah.
As Eric would say, he's playing on top, upside down head. What is the
he's playing on his head?
There we go.
He's sleeping on his head.
He's sleeping. Yep, whatever that is. But I'm still new to hockey. But the thing is, he's playing really well, and the fact of the matter is, this team is making great strides, and they're on the up and up. I actually think they're going to win the division. That's my prediction.
Hey, I would not be surprised. While it could be recency bias from the last few games we've seen, I really like this team. This team has a solid mix of truculence, speed, and finesse that make this a very dangerous team. They have the world's best goaltender in our era in Carey Price, who has been trending very well since the bubble. I like this team's chances of making the playoffs and putting up a fight for that semi final round berth. I could very well see them winning the division as well. I think that there's a couple of you out there that think the same, James. Moving on to number 3, I have the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks finished the 2020 season with a 36-27-6 record, good for 4th in the Pacific and 6th in the Western Conference. They cracked a playoff spot for the first time in 4 seasons and managed to make a second round berth before losing to the Golden Knights in a hard-fought 7-game series. Offensively, there wasn't much wrong with this team, who ranked 8th with a 3.25 goals per game average, while ranking 4th on the power play with a 24.2% clip. Elias Pettersson notched 27 goals and 66 points in 68 games, with Quinn Hughes showing his skill, netting 53 points in 68 games, and was a close second for the Calder Trophy last year. Defensively, the team struggled with some injuries and ranked 19th in goals against per game at 3.10. At 5-on-5, the team ranked 29th in shots against per game and 30th in scoring chances against. Goaltending here was underpinned by a strong season from Jacob Markstrom, though he was lost in the offseason. The then backup situation was decent at best, with 24-year-old Thatcher Demko posting a 3.066 goals against average and a .904 save percentage, although he had a tremendous play in the bubble. Outlook for 2022. The team has a lot of firepower up front, due to a lineup that includes Pettersson, as mentioned, Brock Besser, and Captain Bo Horvat, as well as the breakout season from JT Miller and another season from former King Tanner Pearson. The team lost Tyler Toffoli, but did so to strengthen the back end. And on the back end, Quinn Hughes lit up the league on the offensive side of the puck, but his defensive stats were a little bit questionable, which is to be expected from a young D-man. That happens. The team added Tyler Myers in free agency, who's a strong veteran, and added Nate Schmidt, who's a very quality defender as well. With Alex Edler, this top 4 core is very quality. The bottom pairing is a big question mark. Goaltending wise, the team saw Markstrom move on and instead signed a veteran, Braden Holtby, who's seen a bit of a decline since the Stanley Cup win in 2018. And even during that regular season, he didn't do too hot. It wasn't until the playoffs that he really took off. Players to watch: that Holtby-Demko tandem. Markstrom could very well be a Vezina finalist, and he's now gone. Thatcher Demko had a spectacular postseason, but a less than spectacular regular season. And Holtby, while a Stanley Cup champ, is regressing fast. This tandem will need to challenge each other to bring a level that can support this young, fast, and capable team, especially if defense ends up being a little shaky. And Elias Pettersson. Pettersson has been such a highlight for the Canucks since he stepped foot in the NHL. He's played for 2 years, but it feels like a lot longer because he's just been elite from the get-go. He's a dynamic player to watch who can make plays. He has one of the best shot releases I've ever seen, and is just an all-around elite talent that alone is worth the price of admission. So, Tyler, I told you to take a look at this squad. Do you think this team can see a goaltending tandem worthy of both a playoff berth and perhaps more of a deeper playoff run than last year?
Yeah, the goaltending on this team is an interesting one. As you mentioned, Holtby coming over from the Caps
was one of the NHL's best goalies for, a 4 or 5 year run there. And then the last 3 years have been really weird. He had kind of a down year and then an up year again, and then really bad, his worst year last year. So I feel like he's starting to be on the decline. And, Demko is another interesting one. Like, what do they really have in that guy? As you mentioned, his regular season numbers were nothing to be happy about, but he had a really good postseason. So maybe he's coming up, but I think obviously they got Holtby, more proven goaltender, because they don't really know what they have in Demko yet. And they're going to kind of see where that goes. And maybe it could blossom into something great. And maybe Holtby can have a bounce back season, and they got a super great goaltending tandem. With that being said, like, I don't know if looking at this team going into the season, if I can necessarily trust that. I think goaltending is kind of what have you done for me lately type of thing.
Right.
And I know Holtby and, Demko, I don't know. I just don't really see that being a playoff worthy goaltending tandem necessarily in this division. So I think that they'll probably do a little bit better than expected, but I don't think the goaltending is not the biggest issue. I think it's their depth past their top six. Like, I really don't see this team having much there at all. As you mentioned, the top six with led by Pettersson's amazing. They have one of the best, star and exciting goal scorers in the game right now, but they don't got much of a supporting cast, and I feel like, honestly, I think you have this team ranked a little too high, to be honest with you.
Oh.
So if they do make the playoffs, they're going to squeak in, but I don't really see them going deep at all.
Interesting. Look, to me, I like getting that banter. This is a fun team to watch, much like the rest of this Northern Division. They have a young offensive core that gels well together and they're extremely lethal in the power play and are so strong down the middle. I do question some defensive guys given their age. Quinn Hughes is a revelation, but I don't know if he's enough to offset the question marks currently. And I don't know what goaltending I will get. So that gives me concerns for a deeper playoff run, and to your point. But this team, I think they do make the playoffs. I do think they're at third place. Now, rounding the final spot in the playoffs. Does anyone want to take a guess? The Calgary Flames.
Oh.
The Flames finished the season with a 36-27-7 season, which was good for the 4th in the Pacific and 8th in the Western Conference, which would have been good for the last wildcard team in a regular playoff format. Their time in the bubble was cut short in the first round of the playoffs when they got eliminated by the Dallas Stars in 6 games. Offensively, this team ranked 20th with a 2.91 goals per game, but hovered around near bottom 5 before. They hovered around bottom 5 early, and then they really finished strong, so they gained back a little bit. Their power play clicked for 21.2% for 12th place ranked, which is pretty good. Their advanced stats suggest that they were getting the chances, as they ranked 5th in scoring chances. They just couldn't finish. Defensively, this team finished middle of the pack, averaging 3.02 or 3.06 goals against per game. Their 5-on-5 play was not helpful, as they ranked 29th in scoring chances against. Goaltending was led by David Rittich and Cam Talbot, the latter of which is gone. Rittich worked a 2.97 goals against average and a .907 save percentage, but fell apart in February, where he turned in a 3.65 goals against average and a .887 save percentage in 10 starts, losing the net to Talbot. My outlook for 2021, this team has a set of forwards that are capable of scoring, with the likes of Sean Monahan, Johnny Gaudreau, and Elias Lindholm, and the turtle himself, Matthew Tkachuk. Johnny G has had a dip in production, but this core group of players has been successful in the past. Defensively, the Flames lost Travis Hamonic, but replaced him with Chris Tanev and made some other depth moves to turn over this aging squad. Captain Mark Giordano leads the back end. It's just a question on how this squad will fare this season. The Flames' biggest move of the offseason was nabbing Jacob Markstrom from free agency and who will share the net with David Rittich. This should be a close to equal share of the net. And a good Markstrom and a normal Rittich should bring a good quality tandem here. My players to watch: Matthew Tkachuk. As much as I fucking hate this guy, it's largely because he's a pest to play against. He's basically, especially in the Battle of Alberta, as I'm a huge Oilers fan, he's basically the Marchand of the West. He's scrappy, he's annoying, but has tons of talent and skill. He's a proven 30-goal scorer, 70-point player. So just what else can he bring? That's my biggest. That's why I want to see what he can do here. And then Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey, as they say, is still in his prime years and signed to a team-friendly deal, but his production is very volatile on a team that really lacks consistency. Watch him to bounce back and score and put himself on the score sheet early and often. So I have Eric. I told you to take a look at this squad. How do you feel about this squad after seeing them play in the bubble and after the recent moves? Do you think they make the playoffs?
No, fuck the Flames. They're not making the playoffs. They didn't do shit this offseason. They did get Markstrom. He's good. That's all they got. I fucking hate these guys. This might be my most hated Canadian team. I don't feel confident in them. And I don't think Johnny Gaudreau is good as he once was. Kachuk is now the captain. Like, you got the biggest rat in the league as your captain. You're not going to make the playoffs. Fuck you. Fuck the Flames.
Well said. Look, this team, in my opinion, I expect we'll see a resurgence in goaltending and thus defensive numbers will improve. I personally am a huge Johnny G fan and really cheer for him to turn a corner and become an impact player again. I also expect to see improvement from the other core forwards that will help win games against these high octane teams in the North. I do expect a playoff berth for this squad. Number 5, anybody want to take a guess? The Winnipeg Jets. The Jets finished the last season with a 37-28-6 record, good for 5th in the Central and 9th in the Western Conference. I know that my podcast mates are really itching to ask me.
Where's your team?
They struggled in the bubble off the bat as they had to play with Patrick Laine and Mark Scheifele just one game into the bubble and ended up losing to Calgary in the qualifier. The Jets are scoring beasts, at least they used to be. Coming from the third ranked offense in 2019, the team regressed to below average with a 3.0 goals per game. They regressed to 25th in shots per game on 5-on-5 play. Defensively, this team was decimated from game 1 as the team was without big man Dustin Byfuglien, as well as losing key players to free agency and trades. They somehow ranked 10th in goals per game at 2.83, but their advanced stats suggest they had no business being in that spot. They ranked 26th in shots against per game and 24th in scoring chances against. So what saved this team? Connor fucking Hellebuyck, who deserved an MVP nomination for his performance and did in fact win the Vezina last year. He worked a 2.57 goals against average and a .922 save percentage, ranking 11th and 5th respectively in those stats. His back was hurting after that season, and he's only 27 years old. My outlook for 2021, Patrick Laine seems to be staying for now, but question marks will surround him. Nonetheless, the team added veteran Paul Stastny to help shore up this forward group. This is a quality group that should be able to net a bounce back if healthy, but they will need to bring it all. Defensively, the team has Josh Morrissey, and in my opinion, an underrated defender, and Neil Poink. Among additions, Derek Forbort on the depth side. This suggests that they have an improved group here with the likes of Dylan DeMello re-signing as well. After all, they are improving off of weak numbers, so you can only go up from here. Starting goaltender wise, little question marks here. Connor Hellebuyck will be here for a while. Laurent Brossoit will back him up, who turned in a pretty weak 3.28 goals against average and .896 save percentage. So perhaps those 25 games that Hellebuyck is not playing are my biggest question marks here. Players to watch, Patrick Laine. This guy is intriguing, if only because we don't know what's going to happen with him and the Jets. The player has made his feelings clear that he wants out, but is entering the final year of his current contract where the Jets will own his rights for the next one. He can score, though, and in bunches. So it's a wonder if the Jets can even afford to lose this guy. And then Connor Hellebuyck. No team in the NHL has leaned on their goaltender more in the past 3 seasons. He has faced an ungodly amount of minutes, leading the league in over that time in pure minutes and games played along with shots faced. He is a star and amazingly fun to watch. So my question for you, Alex, for this team, do you trust this offensive group to bounce back and give this season a legitimate shot? Did the defense improve enough to make this team a playoff team?
I mean, I think the offense, I think the Paul Stastny pickup is almost somehow underrated in this whole thing. I think they have enough offensive firepower to win games. And, just like you said, Connor Hellebuyck's amazing. He's, maybe the second best goalie with Vasilevsky in the league right now. It's just, that's a lot of minutes. That's a lot of wear and tear on your body. I'm hoping he holds up because he's on my fantasy team. But I think if the Jets can just be a middle of the road defensive team, somewhere in the, the 13 to 18th best defensive team, somewhere in there. They're going to score enough in this division to possibly squeak in. I kind of like where you have them in that 5th spot right now, but I could see them jumping the Flames if, if they can just be better defensively. And if Hellebuck stands on his head again like he has, he's definitely they've got a shot.
Definitely. My view, the Jets used to be very scary. They could score in bunches and just couldn't let anything in. I think last year was a little bit of a fluke, but I don't think that they're as good as they were 2 years ago either. So somewhere in the middle there, which is why I put them at 5th. And when you're in the most competitive division in the league, though, one good string of games could be the difference between golfing and playing hockey come May. So we may see them squeak in. Number 6, my team, the Edmonton Oilers. And I know we finally get to talk about them. I don't really want to, but I will. The Oilers finished the season with a 37-25-9 record last year, good for 2nd in the Pacific and 5th in the Western Conference. The team looked very good before the pause, but they entered the bubble and got upset by the Chicago Blackhawks in only 4 games. Offensively, this team ranked 14th in offense despite having the 2 top scorers in the league. They excelled on the power play at a 29.5% clip, best in the league and among the best in league history. Depth scoring was very weak, however, and they ranked below average in 5-on-5 stats. Defensively, this team had its ups and downs. They finished 17th in overall defense with a 3.04 goals against per game, though they were stellar on the road, ranking 3rd. So very kind of weird splits there. Goaltending wasn't robust, with veteran Mike Smith earning a 2.95 goals against average and a .902 save percentage, and Mikko Koskinen earning a better, but not great, 2.75 goals against average and a .917 save percentage. My outlook for my team in this year. This team is led by the greatest player on the planet currently in Connor McDavid and a top 5 player in the world, Leon Draisaitl. Both have fought very hard against each other to win the Art Ross in multiple seasons, and Leon is coming off a Hart Trophy season himself. That said, the scoring stops after the top 2 lines, which is an issue. The team attempted to offset the depth issues through key signings, but those remain to be seen currently. On the defensive side, the team will be without their best defender in Oscar Klefbom, who ate 25 minutes and 25 seconds of average ice time, which was good for 5th in the league. And it was tough minutes. It was against really hard, tough opponents. They brought in notable D-man Tyson Barrie to bring in some offensive potential while hopefully bringing average defending as well. Their depth of the defensive side consists of young group of players who are just finding their way in the league. The team will be sticking with Mikko Koskinen on the back end, though the backup situation is in question right now as Mike Smith is on LTIR. Stuart Skinner may take his place from Bakersfield, but he has not had any NHL experience. It's very kind of a crapshoot on who's going to be the Edmonton Oilers backup. Players to watch. Connor McDavid. There's very few players that simply make audiences lose their breath when they play, and McDavid is that player. His combination of speed and raw talent is unlike anything else in the league. He is much watched TV for anyone who likes hockey or even is interested in looking at what hockey is, because he exemplifies it better than anyone. And then Tyson Barrie. This guy was signed to a 1-year show me deal. He comes in as the bona fide quarterback out of an already lethal power play, but also brings some ability 5-on-5 on the offensive side. The Oilers are hoping. It will be interesting if he can bring the necessary defensive help and unlock his offensive potential in this change of scenery experiment for this dude. So since we only have 7 teams, I had James and Eric take a look at this team. I'm going to start with you, Eric. Do you have any confidence in this defense and goaltending squad? And without a big move during the season, can the Oilers make the playoffs?
Their goaltenders are weak. Come on, Tradon. You just got to admit it. You know who they remind me of? They're kind of like the Angels of hockey. Like you're hyped up.
They're exactly the Angels.
You think they're going to have a great season. They have probably the best player in the league, just like the Angels with Trout, and then they just waste another year away with them. They don't make the playoffs. I don't really have any confidence in their defense. I think Barrie, everything you just said about Tyson Barrie is what the Leafs tried to do last year, and it didn't really work out. But who knows? I mean, maybe his second go around with another Canadian team, he could change that up. I like the one pickup I like you guys got was Cuckoo. Is that how
I
you
love
say it?
Cuckoo. He's
He
fantastic.
spells it like Koek. He's the guy who was in the Blackhawks last year who was making you chuck your hat on the ground
Yep.
in the bubble. But I'm pretty unconfident in them, if that's a word. And I think that they should have gotten Markstrom this offseason. But I think when they paid Koskinen that big contract a couple years ago, that got in the way of them trying to get Markstrom this year, because then the fucking Flames got him. But I'm not too confident in your Oilers. I do think they'll do better than the Flames, though.
Oh,
Give you
okay.
that.
I hope so. That'd be great. And James, same set of questions. Do you have confidence in this goaltending and defensive squad, and can they make the playoffs?
In their defense, yeah, I do. I think they have some pretty good defensemen that they still have to like work with and improve over time. I mean, assistant captains Adam Larson and Darnell Nurse are pretty great players. Nurse can put up some offensive numbers, and Larson's pretty much just on the defensive end. And you brought up Tyson Barrett, like they can put up some numbers, and they're brought in there to help with the offense, right? 23-year-old Ethan Bear also is pretty good. He's coming along. I think he was a healthy scratch today, but he's had more positive moments than negative moments, and I think over time that'll continue to build upon that. And he's a small guy. He's like diminutive, and that puts a chip on his shoulder. He has to work twice as hard, and he knows that. And so that kind of pressure that's put on him, I think that helps him become a really great player over time. That being said, inevitably the defense will fail. This is hockey. There's no defense can pull a shutout on their own. Eventually they're going to mess up. They're going to fail the pucks and get through. And that's when goaltending needs to show up. And your goaltenders just suck, plain and simple. Koskinen is the only goal that's played thus far. On his career, the numbers look okay, like 909 save percentage and 2.91 goals against average for his career. But the last 4 games, he's led in 15 goals. Suffice to say, he's not doing his job. He's not pulling his weight. And you guys need to figure something out. Like, you need to get a goaltender. Hopefully the guy from Bakersfield, maybe he could be like this underrated dude that all of a sudden just shows up big in the playoffs. Like those backup goalies who have like a job, like a real job in the world, and then they're just sitting in the arena, and all of a sudden they have a shutout. Like, hopefully he's like that, and then that'll give you guys some hope. But with goaltending this bad, you guys have to like really pump up your offensive end, and you have the personnel to do that. Like your forwards are good, and you have defensemen that can score. But for some reason, they just haven't put it together. It's been a rough 4 games for you guys. So without any improvements, you guys aren't going to make playoffs. But I do see that coming. I do see them improving over time and breaking out this funk.
Look, guys, I'm the biggest Oilers fan you guys probably know, and most audience would know that I'm probably the biggest Oilers fan that they know. And I don't see this team making the playoffs. They lack depth scoring, albeit some of it was addressed, but it hasn't really panned out yet. Their defensive core has shown to be weak and unreliable, but do have their moments. They are young and learning to find their stride in the league, so I'll give them that. The biggest question mark for me is goaltending, as with you guys. Mikko Koskinen is solid, but he's not lights out. And in a division that has some of the best netminders in the game, it's hard to expect us to make the playoffs, even with the best players on the planet. Yeah, sorry, boys. I see you at 6th at this rate. And then rounding out last place, in my opinion, the only team that really doesn't have a shot at playoffs, but I could be wrong as well because they're actually doing okay, is the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators finished another disappointing season, finishing 25, 34, and 12, 7th in the Atlantic and 15th in the East. The Senators have been in all-out rebuild mode for the last couple seasons. Offensively, this team struggled again, ranking 24th with a 2.68 goals per game average. Brady Tkachuk was their highlight, scoring 44 points last season, following up a 45-point season before. Defensively, the team is struggling as well, ranking 30th with a 3.35 goals against per game, only beating the Red Wings. Goaltending-wise, the team has completely changed guards, so any prior discussion would be kind of moot at this point. My outlook for 2021, the team has lost 2 of their top scorers in John G. Pajot and Anthony Duclair, but still have Brady Tkachuk, future captain. I'm sure he's going to be captain in a few years. That kid is fantastic. They added many pieces, though nothing of value besides Tim Stützle from the 2020 draft. The kid lit up the World Juniors for Germany, netting 10 points in 5 games. Quality offenses are built down the middle, and the team doesn't even have a number 1 or even a number 2 centerman, which is not good. Defensively, the team has changed its back end core, but it remains to be seen how they will fare. They are younger, but inexperienced. They do have elite D-man Thomas Chabot, who led the league in minutes per game at 26 even. Goaltending wise, the team will be going with Matt Murray, former 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the Penguins. The years since the Cup haven't been kind to this kid, though. Getting outplayed by Tristan Jarry recently as he worked to a 2.87 goals against average and a .899 save percentage last season. Huge regression. He has the keys to the Ottawa net now and will be sharing the house with Anders Nilsson as his backup. My players to watch, Matt Murray. The Sens wanted a long-term solution in net, and they went all in on Matt Murray. He has a strong resume and a fairly solid career numbers, but his play as of late does raise some eyebrows. The question remains if he can bring back his old self. And then Thomas Chabot. This player is a Sens cornerstone and turns 24 this season. He is becoming one of the most productive offensive defensemen in the league, sitting among the top 15 in total points per game. He has defensive stats that he needs to improve. So he's a guy to watch here as they rebuild. So Tyler, I told you to take a look at the Ottawa Senators. This team is rebuilding, as we know. Do you see them making some strides in all parts of the lineup?
Yeah, not really. I think this team's just going to have another just bottom feeder, kind of year. There's not really a whole lot going on. Like you mentioned, Brady Tkachuk, I agree with you. I think that guy's great. I think they've got some potential that could happen. And, I think maybe their forward lines might take a step forward. I think that they've got some potential to light up the league a little bit. I'm really interested to see how Tim Schnitzel does. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I just think they lack so much defense. They might as well just put a cardboard cutout in the net. I just they're so bad defensively. It's gonna be another rough year in the nation's capital.
Yeah. Look, this is another rebuilding team. All teams go through it. The Kings are going through it. The Sens have brought in many players in an effort to turn things around. I actually like the Matt Murray signing. I think he was treated a bit unfairly in Pittsburgh, much like what happened when he was soaring and they tossed Marc-Andre Fleury to the curb. Same type of thing. They don't really give a shit, and it's kind of unfortunate because these goaltenders are winning you cups, but it is what it is. It's a business. He is going to want to earn that contract. But I do like this team to improve, but the All-Canada divisions will be tough enough, and I don't expect anything better than a 7th place finish. Does anybody have any questions for me before I ask you guys what rankings we got? No?
Did you go with the Oilers? Did you rank the Oilers purposely bad because your other hockey picks last year in the bubble were a little questionable? So
that is actually a great question.
You're hoping that it reverses. Reverse psychology.
Yeah, no, I did take a lot of time with these. I did take a lot of time with these rankings on in all the divisions, and I had to look at them objectively, the Oilers objectively, and I guess there is some recency bias here. They do not look good, and I am not very confident as a huge Oiler fan, and I was very excited to start the season. I thought that we were easily going to get the 2nd spot, and then you actually really dig into these other teams who've made some good moves. This may not have the best teams in the league, but this is the hardest division to make the playoffs because there are 6 great teams that could easily make that top 4 spot. So, but let's go around the horn and ask everyone if they disagree or agree with me. Who is going to the playoffs, James?
Canadians, Leafs, Canucks, and Oilers.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Eric.
Canadians win the division.
Okay.
Canucks, Maple Leafs, and Winnipeg Jets.
You don't have the Leafs in there?
Yeah, I said Canadians, Canucks, Maple Leafs, and Winnipeg
okay.
Jets.
Yeah, I'm third. Wow, that's a big regression for them if they can't even crack top 2. I really hope that happens. Tyler.
I got Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and Edmonton.
Oh, okay. And Alex.
Really don't want to do this, but I agree with you. Leafs, Canadiens, Canucks, Flames.
Okay. Hey, that I love it. There are a lot of differences. I mean, I think you can look. This division. No one has a fucking clue what you're gonna get. It's already turning into a crazy season in the first 4 games. But James, that is the Scotia North Division. That is my divisional previews for the NHL. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to see if my predictions are right. I actually hope they're not in the Northern Division, but we'll see.
Tradon, another great job. I've honestly learned so much with these previews. Like, I'm more prepared for this NHL season than I've ever been before. And I know that doesn't mean much, but like, I'm seriously super, super appreciative of the job you've done with these.